Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Level Up Roundtable on designing for older players, featuring ROLVe's MidnightKrystal and Bluay, Looty Games, Looty Haga, and Maximillian Studios 101airsoft and cbmaximillian. Here's question number 1.
There is a perception that Roblox is a platform for children. How do you convince people or raise awareness that there are games for an older audience?
What I was going to say in particular is that's an extremely difficult thing to do under the circumstance of Roblox already being an established platform and engine that was specifically advertised by the corporation as something that's typically for kids. They chose a lot of things that obviously had a target audience: bright colors, simplistic cartoony designs, things that would normally attract children. They also advertise a lot of their more common ground games being things like Adopt Me, Brookhaven, Piggy, Pet Simulator X, these games that are very clearly designed for children. And the problem with it is Roblox is advertising itself as Roblox still, rather than advertising the games it has to provide. It's advertising Roblox.
I mean, I have something to say about this in terms of the aged up too. Like, I think that he's making a lot of really good points. I see like the percentage of users that, like, if you want to be a nerd, like it's a public company. And so Dave, the CEO, will go do earnings calls, right, every quarter with investors. And they're actually pretty good, okay? Because it's Dave, he's the founder, and he's a lot of fun and interesting, and he's super passionate about the company. And so he talks a lot about interesting things, and he shares a lot of data. And the fact is that the percentage of, say older audience, the over 16s or over 13s, has been growing kind of quarter over quarter. And I think that my take is that when you talk to people that have, say, churned out of Roblox, it's because there's not enough content there for them. I think that probably the right strategy is not try to convert the older audience off platform to come onto the platform. I think that probably the better strategy is like just allow for more complex and interesting games to be built by the creators that already love Roblox, so that as they age up, they're more likely to stick around on the platform. And I think that that's actually what's happening, because these dudes are geniuses. Like, all these guys in the call, right? They've been working on Roblox games since they were 8 years old. And the fact of the matter is that as they get better and better at making games, they're going to make games that are naturally for that cohort of people, right? And I think that's absolutely correct. I mean, that's the right strategy. And I think that the engine continues to support more and more advanced things. And so the perspective of, like, Adopt Me, well, I'm not sure about the history of Adopt Me, but it coincides with a simple engine that just supports multiplayer and not a lot of complex gameplay mechanics. You're going to end up making the kinds of experiences that children will enjoy, because they're a lot more like simultaneous play on a playground with role playing. That's going to be more appealing. But now the tools are actually quite sophisticated. You should see what the Frontlines team is doing with their game. I mean, it's insane, not just on the art side, but also on the technical execution side. They're doing some things that are actually quite remarkable. And so this will allow, I think, for players to, like, who already love their avatars, they have all their friends are on Roblox, they don't want to switch. I wouldn't want to switch. I don't want to switch, right? I think it's just the options. There's not enough necessarily options. So those are some of my thoughts on that. I don't know if that's helpful.
I think what you touched on was actually absolutely perfect, because one of the hardest things with Roblox at the current moment is like, for myself, for example, I started playing Roblox since I was in middle school, like 5th grade. And as I'm older now, I only play 1 or 2 Roblox games because I just grew out of all the other ones that I used to play. And it's harder to develop more like interesting games on Roblox, not actually because of the technological limitations, because Roblox has been advancing in those fields a lot. There's a lot of great things coming out for that in particular. When you brought up options, my brain like exploded, because Roblox has this mentality of they have to enforce these like standards or expectations, not only on developers, but on the audience as well. And they're removing things that, or like discouraging things that doesn't really make sense, especially for a lot of the older players. But something I really want to touch on is they're extremely restrictive with a lot of things. And I know one of them is the use of gore or like adult themings. Like, it's going to sound stupid, I'm going to say it though, but it's like things like drugs. They just having something like a prescription medicine in a game can be detrimental to it because it's something Roblox doesn't want on the platform. But it removes this complete like adult aged up material that can be used to create extensive stories.
Well, I will say this. First of all, that's super interesting. I think that's super interesting. And I will say that as a businessman who's a boomer, right? I guess I'm a businessman. I'm a creator businessman. You know what I mean? I think it's a public company and there are rules and regulations about what you can and can't show if your product is majority used by kids or whatever, right? Like under 13 or even under 18 or even under 21. And all these, and since it's a release across the whole planet to all these different people in different countries with different values and different rules, they have to somehow create a consistent way to measure and balance what can and can't be on the platform. I think it must be excruciatingly difficult. And not only that, but because there's so many users, they have to do it in some kind of automated fashion. Like one of our guys on the team got banned because he uploaded like a blue square texture to the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was like the second time he did, he got banned. So they have some kind of automated content moderation, right? But it's like, and they have to. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not sitting, I don't know the decisions they're making, but I know that that must be a huge factor for what they're deciding goes in and doesn't go in, or
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. When we were part of the program for doing games in China, it was a pain because Arsenal has like over 300 plus characters, and any one of them that had anything related to zombies, skeletons,
Ghosts,
or like the undead, ghosts, we had to remove all those characters just from the China version.
Kill effects too.
Kill
We
effects too,
we
yeah.
have ones where like players would get dismembered.
You weren't allowed to damage yourself
weren't allowed
with
to
the
do
rocket
that.
jump, with the rocket launcher.
Yeah, we had to change the way the gameplay was too.
So doing that on a universal scale is probably the most difficult thing. However, recently, the Netherlands, I believe, currently had a shift in a law which completely removed loot boxes. You're not allowed to do loot boxes in video games anymore in those areas. So Arsenal is actually banned in those areas at this current moment because we have cosmetic crates. But Roblox was capable of blocking this in that region due to compliance issues. So it's not up to me to whether or not say Roblox is capable of allowing us to do these things and just add these kind of restrictions to it. But they're able to do it with that. So who knows what the future might have. Personally, when I was younger, I was like, Roblox should just make a subgrade of Roblox designed for an older audience. Same tools, same engine. It's just a different platform.
All right, guys, I'm going to jump in real quick just because we need to move on. But thank you so much for those like really thorough, hard-hitting answers. I do want to point out also that we have content ratings that are being rolled out now so that devs are able to rate their own content about what age is appropriate for their games. So hopefully step in the right direction, giving y'all more tools. All right, next question. What metadata or marketing strategies do you use in order to ensure that older audiences find the games that are meant for them?
So I guess like one thing that we do for Frontlines is we tend to try to grab the attention of YouTubers outside of the platform. So YouTubers that are not Roblox YouTubers. So I know like when we first released Frontlines demo back in February, half of the YouTubers that were playing the game were, Battlefield and Call of Duty YouTubers. So, we actually got a lot of attention outside of Roblox just because of that. alone. And I know, I mean, going back to the original question from before too, in terms of like aging up Roblox, I think Frontlines was actually seen, like they didn't even know that it was a Roblox game when they first saw it from those YouTubers. They thought it was just like the Steam indie game. And the only thing that kind of like related it back to Roblox were the blocky hands. And we're currently actually working on realistic rigs to change that all up. So I'd say one is definitely the visuals. I think it in itself is like marketing towards older audiences. And two is trying to get promoters outside of the Roblox platform to promote, the aged up experiences.
Great. All right. Anybody else?
One small thought on that, which is I would wager that a lot of the influencers, say on YouTube or on TikTok, that have been covering Roblox for a long time, their audience also is aging up. And so my prediction is that they're going to need to also figure out how to age up their content so that they can keep their current, user base or viewer base or fans engaged. So I think that's an opportunity.
Awesome. All right. Okay, my questions are moving around. Since most 13 plus users seem to play predominantly on PC, why are you developing on Roblox and not perhaps Unity or Unreal?
Accessibility.
Yeah, exactly. I was literally going to say that. I was literally going to say accessibility. It's, I think it's just the way that we got established too. I think is really a huge factor because just at the time when we first got started, Roblox was pretty much the only 3D software I could get my hands on. I couldn't download Steam and like play games like Team Fortress or whatever to begin with, just because I honestly I just didn't know how, because I was just young and like kind of underdeveloped and not really sentient. So I just got so used to Roblox that then like, oh, wow, these tools are great. And, I want to keep working on this and making more stuff with this. And it just so happens that at the same time that a lot of audience members are kind of going through the same thing I went through. A lot of us have gone through at the beginning, where it's pretty much the only like 3D application that we can that we have access to at that moment. So that in on itself is just quite appealing. And just because there's such a large mass for it, we know that it works.
It's not even from a developer standpoint either. It's also from a player standpoint, because compare some Roblox to every other platform out there. You download Team Fortress, you now have Team Fortress. You have to download it. You got to wait for it. There it is. You download Roblox, and now you have 50 first-person shooters just at your hands, just right there. And you can play and drop them like instantly.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think it's a combination of, I think that it's the most interesting place to develop games, first of all. I think that's number one. Number two is that it's also the fastest place to make games. If you want to do a freaking MMO, like just mechanically, like from an engineering standpoint, good luck. You're going to be spending an astronomical amount of money on servers, infrastructure, optimization. Those are actually really quite complicated problems. And Roblox is like, hey, here you go. It all works. There you go. And then you can immediately deploy it to players really fast. And I think that's why the experiences on Roblox tend to be so crazy innovative, because it's just so fast. Like, oh, this isn't working. Let's scramble it up. Let's you know what I mean? Let's try something else. And you can get that done in a week, days even. And that's incredible. And I think that it's so in terms of like the revenue share, I think that's a very that's a factor that matters, but you have to look at, there's so many other things that go into that. You know what I mean? Like 1% of a revenue share of a Beatles, like the Beatles franchise or whatever, that's a lot. You know what I mean? That's a lot. So it's really about like, oh, why don't you make your own music? Like it's kind of it's one part of the equation. So that you have to weigh when you're deciding like, where are we going to focus our time and energy? Because also like, let's say we had these opportunities to work on these off-platform games. Well, you're looking at 10, 20, $30 million investments to get something built that's going to be cool, that has a chance to. And then you're talking about complex partnerships where we're working with a publisher, we're working with someone who does the financing and these stakeholders, and then you're working with a licensor who you have all these stakeholders now involved because there's so much risk on the table. And then once you get that kind of budget involved, you have to do all these things to really kind of ameliorate or cut down on the risk, right? Whereas I feel like it's a lot more free. It's a lot more free on Roblox to just, you're free from these sorts of external stakeholder constraints. I don't know. I hope that's a good answer.
I think you make a really good point. Can I just add something to that? I mean, I literally have tried working with another engine. I work with one right now as well, just to, gain perspective and just try some new stuff out. And I mean, what you're saying is like absolutely 100% true. Like that is that is 100% a huge bit of struggle working on those other platforms. Cause yeah, they do have other things to offer too. And they are different. And there are some other cool stuff that's unique to what they offer. I work with Unity too, but yes, it's harder. Like there is a lot less like getting to the meat of the whole process. There's a lot of like preliminary steps you have to take, like you mentioned, with stakeholders, partners, servers, networking. That's a big one for Cameron. You have to do your own networking, or like go onto the asset store and get networking there. And even then it's like kind of like unreliable because it's third party. But I do like that about Roblox a lot, is just like you get right to that development part without too much in the way to get it all started, to get everything like established, to have that platform to basically hold this whole project under.
It's not as risky. And personally, I think it's just a lot more fun because you can do a lot more stupid things on Roblox than you can anywhere else.
It's super lighthearted, and I really like that about. I think that makes it really special. There's really nothing else like that.
Totally agree. I think network engineering and optimization IQ is like 145 minimum. You know what I mean? So I'm not making the cut, buddy. I'm not gonna be able to do it. You know what I'm saying? It's too hard. It's too hard. I can't do it. And like, there's a limited number of people that can. First of all, there's a limited number of people on the earth that can do it well. And then an even smaller number of people on the earth that want to do it. And then an even smaller number of people on the earth who can do it, want to do it, and are already getting paid $600,000 a year working at Google.
All right. Moving on. I just want to say though, like I totally agree. Like I think the accessibility allows so much experimentation to happen on this platform, and it's just really incredible. So, all right. So here's one. Maybe Clarence and Nick, you'd like to take this one as well. Why should you focus on designing for 13 plus? Why wouldn't you want to design for all ages and have that audience be even wider?
Yeah, I think, I mean, one of the biggest reasons why we're making Frontlines is because, again, like, we love the game, the type of genre in itself. And so we're mostly building it for us. And it just, I think out of coincidence that, it's a type of game that relates more towards older audiences too. And I think a lot of it is because, growing up, my uncle gave me like a bootleg Grand Theft Auto. And like, I would sneak into the store to get like, Modern Warfare 2. So I grew up with these like aged up, I guess, games as you would call it. And so, when I build games, I kind of like related to my experiences during my childhood when I was playing those kind of games too. So, a lot of it was really just personal experience. It wasn't like, hey, there is like this market that hasn't been touched on Roblox yet. Let's build for it. It's more so just out of personal preference that we'd like to build, those kind of experiences. And I think in terms of accessibility, I've always thought, if a game's fun, the game's fun, and I think all ages could enjoy it. I think right now with access to mobile too and Xbox, I think it's gonna, bring more players outside of like the older demographic onto Frontlines. Because I know, I mean, Roblox has this feature on their groups where you can view what players are kind of like requesting and like chatting about. And in our group, I think most of the players are under 13 actually. And a lot of them actually are saying that they want to play Frontlines or they can't play Frontlines because not because it's like aged up or it's for older audiences, but it's because they don't have a PC to play Frontlines. They want it for mobile, and they can't join it because Frontlines is not available for mobile at the moment. And so I think if we make Frontlines really fun, it's going to be widely playable for all ages, not just the older demographic.
Great, thank you for that. All right, next question. I've heard anecdotes that point to examples of Roblox games that remove tutorials and Fatui, first-time user experience, and saw increased metrics. So do you have any direction or suggestions for striking the right balance between hand-holding and no tutorial at all?
I mean, I can answer it to the best of my ability, but it's the other people in this call that are the real experts, right? So kind of like because I have a lot of experience in off-platform games. And so first-time user, I don't know, because this is such a Roblox specific question, but I can tell you that off-platform first-time user experience is usually something you don't do until you're sure that the gameplay is really great. And so it's a huge debate on every game team when to work on first-time user experience. And just sort of anecdotally, my experience having played like a ton of Roblox games is like, I don't want a first-time user experience, like unless it's the lightest possible touch, the heavy-handed stuff. I'm just like, oh, get off of me, rules. Like that's how I feel, right? Like, get out of here. Don't tell me what to do, but I don't know what to do, So I feel like I think it's really hard to get that balance right. So, but that's how I feel as a player.
So my take on tutorials and stuff is, I mentioned it earlier, but tutorials should be a completely opt-in thing. Players do not like it when you spam their screen with tooltips or windows to close. They absolutely hate that. But having a menu option for when they first join, a simple text box that says, "You are new. Would you like to play the tutorial?" They hit no, that's whatever. Just say, "You can find the tutorial here if you want to try it later." And when they do the tutorial, I want to say the best way to do it is do it like Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Because I've never played that game. I recently played it just to do some market research. I played the tutorial. It was fun. It was honestly really funny because of the dialogue, but it was just entertaining. So if you do make a tutorial, make it opt-in, give them the option, make it not annoying, and more importantly, make it fun.
I haven't played that tutorial, but is it just a series of pop-ups with dialogue, or do they actually have you practice what they are teaching?
They do have you practice what they teach you, yes. What they do is you are in a shooting range and there's a man on the mic who instructs you on what you should do. He'll tell you to walk up to here or to walk up to there and do a certain action. And of course, there's a lot of comical twists to it. And once you're done with it, they tell you can repeat this without the dialogue and you can just run the firing range as fast as you can. And I think
they have leaderboards for it too.
Do they actually?
I think so. I think they store that information that you can access.
That's so cool.
I might be wrong, but if it's not Counter-Strike, it's one of those games. But I mean, it's cool to have that too. Like there's some pretty creative ways that I've seen some dev teams go about doing their tutorials. I thought the scoreboard thing was like super neat. Like that was really cool. I like that.
Call of Duty does a similar tutorial for, I think, Modern Warfare or Modern Warfare 2. Not as funny though.
Yeah, they had
the
shooting
range thing.
Yeah, you go through it like the fastest time possible, and they're like, it's like pretty good, but you can always improve on garbage.
Yeah, they made
like,
it
what?
They made it a spec ops mission too, so you could actually play that level over and over again to get higher scores. It was cool.
Valorant's got a pretty good one. I don't know if you guys have played Valorant. That one.
Yeah, I tried the Valorant one. Yeah, I like that
one of our developers really likes Valorant. I will not touch it for the life of me.
I do see some comments about analytics for Fatuis as well, and wanted to make sure that got some airtime because it is so important just to track your players' progress throughout the entire tutorial so you can keep track of where they're dropping off, where they're struggling. Yep. See Chris nodding.
100% funnel analysis is what you'd call it. Yeah, it gets really hard to dissect why someone is not sticking around. That's the part that's hard, but yeah, you can know where they're not sticking around. And I think that's at least something that's going to point you maybe in the right direction sometimes, which is more helpful than always looking at your kind of compass and it's spinning in all directions. Like, I don't know what to do. At least it gives you something.
For sure. All right. I think we have time for one last question before we break for our after party. How often do you need to release new content to keep older players engaged?
That really depends on honestly how established you are, how prevalent, just how many people are playing your game and what type of player you have, and what kind of genre you're making. Because I mean, in the aged up realm, there is a huge variety of different kinds of games out there for that kind of audience. And those games have all sorts of different kinds of play times. If you're talking like a fast paced shooter for Arsenal, you're probably going to be in there for like 10 to 20 minutes max, just because of the nature of the game. The games are fast and you normally are like, you feel satisfied with your playtime. Like you're like, okay, I got some rounds in, like it's been pretty substantial overall. So I take that. But then there's games that are like survival games that you're playing a long time and it may take a long time to see new content. So those different factors can really change how often you're releasing updates. Like for us during high season, when things are really busy and we're cranking out updates a lot, it's like every 2 weeks. But then sometimes it can literally get as infrequent as 2 months before an update comes out. Like it can totally just change. At least for us, doing a fast-paced shooter, that works for us. So that's normally what we do for our kind of genre, I guess.
I would say that it's less about how frequent you add content and more importantly, how sustainable your content is. When I branched off, I started playing a lot of other games that had a lot of replayable content. That is also extremely important, ensuring your content is replayable and that your gameplay loop is just generally fun in the first place. But currently, one of the best ways to sustain a player is to offer them goals, essentially. And believe it or not, the season pass system is what I found to be probably one of the greatest and most beneficial ways for a player to progress in a game, especially one like Arsenal. You don't need to make content every week, every 2 weeks. You'll burn yourself out. You will just end up hurting yourself in the end. So making something that lasts for a while and gives you time to build for the next part of it, I think is insanely important. Like, for example, Arsenal Reloaded is going to have a season system. Every 3 months, new content's going to rotate. At least new content, whereas old content will probably rotate itself weekly. Game modes will be swapped out based on weeks, and the season will change it like every 3 months with a bunch of new things to add and new things to do. And that doesn't mean we're going to stop doing smaller content additions either, like a new crate or something. But bigger updates would probably be something that's done in a 3-month period, whereas smaller updates are just done when we feel like it.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct, what these guys are saying. And I think that there's a really good article, if you guys have ever heard of a game called Path of Exile. Grinding Gear Games actually released a kind of a breakdown of some of their engagement metrics with their releases and their release cadence, because they were asking themselves the same question. And I think if you read at the very end, it's this nebulous statement of like, well, at the end of the day, we found that the content that works the best is the kind of content that's really awesome. You know what I mean? But it doesn't come out too often. And I'm like, well, dang. But yeah, you should read the article, because they go in and they kind of like really explain like their logic and reasoning. And it's very similar to what these gentlemen are saying.
I'd say too much content is also a bad thing. I know some games who try to like have that like frequent cadence and they update like every single week and the game just gets bloated. And I've seen players leave because of that too. So that's something else to keep in mind. I'd say meaningful updates are much more worthwhile than like frequent updates. So I thoroughly enjoy games that do thematic updates, like big thematic updates that actually put a lot of meaning into the game than like you know, hey, every 2 weeks we're gonna release like 2 new like weapons or something like that. So
I loved themed updates so much.
I love themed updates, Halloween updates, please.
Yes.
Yes.
I-
Literally our
Oh.
favorite that and summer. Those are our two favorites right there.
I love doing Halloween updates. Anytime Halloween comes around, I explode.
Yeah. Clarence, to your point also, like balance is super important when you're releasing all of that content, because I've also seen players churn out of games because they just feel like they can't keep up, right? Because we're asking too much of them, the balance is too difficult, and they just feel swamped. So, but yes, also a big fan of Halloween updates. That's my favorite. All right, well, it looks like that is all the time that we have. Thank you all for attending and asking such amazing questions. I would also like to thank Krystal, Ivan, Chris, Nick, and Clarence for sharing their experiences and expertise on designing for 13+ players. For everyone who's watching on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Drop your questions and comments below. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Roblox Developer Relations YouTube channel. More level up videos are coming soon.